a disease that anyone who spoke to them was seized by a mortal illness and in no matter could evade death. It's a direct quote from the Horizon book of the Middle Ages. The Black Death has arrived. The biological weapon of mass destruction and the second wave of the plague. 3 events of the plague have wiped out millions to date. From 165 AD with returning Romans, which very well may have caused the fall of the Roman Empire, known as the Justine Plague, to the modern plague that started in 1860 from China, traveling globally, even to our western United States. The second wave, known as the Black Plague or the Great Plague, will be our focus today. People cared no more for dead men than we care for dead goats. One could enter a city, finding unlocked doors anywhere, dead in the street, roaming animals, goats, sheep. October 1347, 12 galleys from Crimea ported to Messina. Aboard was a dying crew. Sadly, this was only the beginning. The Messinas fled, and by 1348, Italy, France, and Sicily had been invaded. How did they get infected? Inside a flea, the blood has a bacillus that causes the stomach to block. The flea needs to feed, so it gets on rodents and rats. And it bites and it pricks and it pricks and it can't feed, and so it throws up on the rat. And now the wound is infecting the rat. There are 3 forms of the plague: bubonic, pneumonic, and septicemic. The bubonic causes the blood vessels in the infected to hemorrhage, causing bruising all over the body, all over the arms, and in the armpits, and in the groin area. Horrible, horrible boils start to form and cover the body. Eventually, your tongue turning black, thus the name the Black Plague. The pneumonic causes gangrene inside the esophagus, in the larynx, in the throat. Gets down into the chest and the lungs, causing horrible pain. Blood in the mucus, vomiting. Has a horrible foul smell and almost always causes death. The septicemic form becomes a fatally infectious disease in the blood, and thus death is imminent. Once the rat population dies, the rodent population starts dying, the fleas need a new host, and they often seek out humans. Humans become the new hosts by the same mode the rats did, by the pricking of the fleas and the vomiting into the wound, and now the body is infected. The priests at the time became overwhelmed because the death toll was so high. They couldn't keep up with the last rites of the dying. The physicians became overwhelmed. They couldn't treat. They couldn't save these individuals. They started dressing in black cloaks with giant beaks and black hats to identify that they were plague physicians. Farms were abandoned. Crops were abandoned. Sheep and hogs became infected and died and were laying in the streets. Law and religion became abandoned. Those left unaffected retreated into the country, where they left and lived with a life of zeal and happiness that they had not been condemned to the plague. Winter came, the fleas became dormant, and spring of 38 came. This is when the plague spread over the known world for the second time. England, Scandinavia, and Russia fell to the plague in 1361. It was a short 4-year dormant period, and then in London, 1665, the Great Plague arose to become known as the Great Plague of London. The papal authorities started reporting, and in Avignon, in 3 days, 1,500 died, to include 5 cardinals, 100 priests, 100 bishops, 358 Dominicans. France lost over 124,000 individuals in the same manner. Truly, the count of the dead in total will never be known. Millions have died because of the plague. Over a third of Europe's population perished. This has been the worst war mankind's ever known. Widowers of the plague joined the Holy Order. Merchants arrived, bringing on the beginning of the Renaissance. Peasantry started realizing their power, and a new middle class was formed. Hardest hit in the aftermath were the Jews, because the Christians persecuted the Jews, calling out for a bloodbath, a blood sacrifice, and poisoned their waters. Now that we understand how to combat a flea population, Heart Guard, flea medicine for your cats and dogs, medications, things you can put on your yard to kill your fleas, and we have good medical care. The plague still remains a threat to us all. It holds the power to wipe out a large population in days. In conclusion, because the plague is ever present for a terroristic attack or a sudden pandemic in rural areas where medical treatment would not be readily sought, being aware of fleas, the signs and symptoms of plague, is our best weapon against this warring enemy. Thank you.
That was the best one yet.
That was like so cool.
No, it was good. Wasn't it good, guys? Yeah.
I'm seeing